this week's Rob's Country. Balance seemed to be able to introduce me to the best people in farming anywhere in New Zealand, including one operation in Taranaki. Oliver, a Queen Street farmer, literally, is that the way we're heading, corporate type farming?
I'd say we're not necessarily corporate farmers, but we're something in between. There's a very strong family influence there and family ownership and family involvement, but we're certainly introducing a few more corporate things, such as the Ag Hub system is one of the newest examples of that, which just means that from our Auckland office we can see everything that's going on from how long effluent irrigators have been going during the day, exactly which paddock they've been in, to the up-to-date weekly feed wedge from the feed reader. So I think it's just giving us that extra bit of transparency from Auckland.
Can I comment a little bit about this corporate farm point, which comes up a lot? And it's, as I said, it's a fifth generation farm, and the biggest problem in the dairy industry today is how do you hang on to your dairy farm, and how do you pass on your dairy farm, and making each generation pay for it. This keeps moving the mortgage between one generation and another. And so my aim here is that this farm can be run as a business. Now, proud of their heritage, but we can run it as a business, and it's economically viable. Because now, a 100-acre dairy farm, you can't live off it. So it's really I want to pass on something which is really economically viable, and I think is the only approach to succession planning.
It's got quite technical during your lifetime.
It's got very technical. When we built this wonderful super shed 7 years ago, I flew to Ireland to have a look at the systems to be used. I looked at lots of systems, but I was looking for a system which was not labour intensive, could help expansion, and also help the information and provide information so we could monitor what we're trying to do, because that's the only way to keep the economics going the right way. So yes, it's got technical. However, it's still, you need good weather, good management, and a good team.
And good information.
And good information, yes.
Very good information.
Tell me about your calf feeding system.
Calf feeding system, basically, after we built the super shed, we turned the old herringbone cow shed into a fully automated calf feeding system. So basically, we can fit quite a few calves in there, and they can basically all feed themselves. So they have chips in their ears. The system identifies them when they go in for a feed, and they'll only get one feed over a certain period of time. So I guess it just minimises the labour aspect in that. And also another addition to that is in the last year we've built a really large other calf shed, which is not as automated, but it just means that calving is much more centralised. So instead of using all the available sheds over the farm and wasting a whole lot of people's time sort of going all over the farm to feed and look after the calves, we've now centralised it. So we're sort of looking at all sorts of ideas like that to drive efficiency and also minimise payroll for our sheep milkers.
Stockmanship and stock, not important, it's vital.
It's critical. It's getting that extra kg of milk solids out of that cow, making sure it produces, making sure it's in good health. And we do have a farm advisor who's a fully qualified vet, so we take it very seriously. And I'd like to make the point that the share milker and the owners, we're actively managing. So, Oliver is the general manager of this property, so we get involved. So we're as keen for the share milker to make money as for us to make money. And that's why we're involved in herd management. That's why we have these Ag Hub systems. So we work together and make sure we maximise productivity, and as you say, herd management is critical.
You're wearing the balance hat. They play an important part of the farm and the management?
Well, this is the exciting thing. I really got heavily involved 20 years ago when we had 100 acres, and I really had to develop this farm from nothing. I had difficulty in learning. I had difficulty in in communicating because people were just sort of suppliers, and fertilizer application. I'm saying, how do I really know what I'm doing? How do I really know what the environment's doing? Am I looking after the future? Am I being environmentally sensible? And of course, because there's a lot of noise, a lot of talk about pollution, a lot of talk about the use of water on dairy farms, and especially living in Auckland, I get a little bit of dinner party. People push me saying, you're polluting our country. So Balance comes in and they talk to us about this, and they help us. And they're not there just to sell us something. They're there to help us to maximise productivity at if you like, minimal application. So they're also part of our management team. Hence the Ag Hub system. Hence Oliver's sitting at his computers in Auckland, talking to the share market, and half an hour later he'll talk to the Balance rep and say, hey, are we doing it right, or what should we be doing? So that's a whole new philosophy.
I guess.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, I could probably provide further details on that. Okay, so a perfect example is, I guess many farmers sort of use, blanket fertilizing, and what we're trying to do here is, a couple of years ago we decided to make the investment of all paddock testing. So we'll test the fertility of every paddock on the farm, and from there we can actually work out what it's lacking, and then further from there we discuss with our Balance rep how we're going to tailor the fertilizer application to those paddocks. So for example, one of our most recent applications of fertilizer was we grouped paddocks on the farm into 3 groups depending on their fertility and what they were lacking, and therefore we could basically minimise the amount of fertilizer we were putting on and tailor to those 3 groups or 3 types of paddocks, and I guess get a lot more bang for buck, as well as looking after the environment and minimising the fertilizer that was actually applied to those paddocks.
As an accountant, every dollar is very important.
It's very important actually, especially when it comes to farming, because farming is incredibly capital intensive, and the things we do around here are sort of big plays, big investments, and they're long-term plays. They're not an overnight plug or a fix. If we think that our main races in and out of the supershed complex need to be concreted, we'll concrete them, and therefore you can see over time that by the time you maintain those really well-used races, you're almost spending as much, but obviously you've got that massive investment right at the start. But yeah, it should pay off because they're long-term investments.
What more information, if any, would you like?
I guess
I would say we'd like more accurate information from Jim Hickey. Weather control.
There's nothing I could say to that.
I guess we're heading the way in the direction of getting more and more information, especially through cloud-based computing. So, for example, in the last couple of years, we transitioned all our businesses to the Xero accounting system, and that provides so much more up-to-date financial information. So that's obviously much better for management, because if you don't have the figures, how can you manage? So that's providing a lot more up-to-date and timely information on the financial side, and also on the operational side. We've got the Ag Hub system, which is providing huge amounts of information from everything from where and when and at what application rate and what concentration rate we're redistributing the effluent through the smart hydrants, to how much dry matter are we producing on a weekly basis, looking at the feed wedge and how that's responding to fertiliser application and effluent redistribution. So we're starting to get a bit more scientific, and we've identified that the more scientific we get and we make the changes, there's potential for material improvements and benefits out of that.
can I just make a comment? This is hugely exciting. I can remember my grandmother saying, next year is going to be better. Our farm next year will be better. And what we're doing now, we're going to make sure next year is better because we have information and we have planning. So we're just not just hoping it'll be better, we're doing everything we can.
The Balanced Environmental Awards.
Well, as you know, I'm an international businessman. I have 125 hotels around the world. So we're really running. And I tell people, I'm always happy, but I'm never satisfied. And when we won these awards, I was blown away because, and a little bit embarrassed to win 5 or 6 awards out of the 11 awards, because I still think there's much more we can do on the farm, and I still have lots of ideas on what we should be doing. And so I am saying there's a lot more to do, but it was unbelievable. It's very encouraging for our team. It's encouraging for me that we're actually going in the right direction. And so the motivation of these awards is fantastic.
After the break, we travel to Southland. Welcome back to Rob's Country. Southland is very, very strong when it comes to dairying, and for very good reason. They've got a good rainfall down there, and there's some very clever farmers, including one who had an international history.
We operate 4 dairy farms and support land in a runoff block. Our total area is about 1,850 hectares, and we have about 3,000.
Let's talk a bit about balance. You've committed yourself to balance.
Yeah.
What are you wanting from them?
Well, there's actually a few things that sort of played a part in the decision making, and the one is that we've got a reasonable sized business, and when you want to intensify that, it sort of creates some challenges. It's quite easy to be intensive on a small scale because you just know your cows intimately just about, and so it's easy to keep track of everything. When you have a big operation and you just go with the flow, well, there's no grass or whatever, then there's no grass. That's easy, everyone can do that too. But if you want to intensify and you want to set the standards and you make sure that your cows are well fed every day, it's actually quite a challenge. And so we really feel that to do that, you actually need to do well on 3 levels. You need strategic knowledge, analytical knowledge, and practical knowledge. We've got the practical knowledge. I'm a bit of a dreamer, so we've got the strategic knowledge, but it's the analytical knowledge that's actually where it's sort of where we feel the pressure a bit, and that's where we really feel that the Egg Hub is going to make a difference, or we hope it's going to make a difference. So basically, gathering all the information, making sure we get the right information into a place that we can analyze it and optimize it.
So basically, you're giving questions to the organisation and saying, I want the answers to these questions.
Yeah, basically, I mean, I can really see a good place for this Egg Hub, actually just in gathering all that information, getting it to a central place where we can actually do something with it, like stuff like your fat to protein ratio, your milk urea, your soil moisture, all these things. Like you really want to optimize them if you want to set the standards on how you want your business to perform. So that's really one thing. And the other thing, we do import quite a bit of feed, and I really like the link between the feed business and the fertilizer and the total nutrient story. I can really see a lot of sense in that as well.
So how often do you want new information?
All the time. I mean, that's the thing. Like it has to be current, and it has to be. The thing is, you want to have like really short learning cycles. Like if you go somewhere where not a lot of people have gone, you want to find out really quick if you're going off track. So you really want to have like short learning cycles and really sort of immediate information out of your business.
Does it need to be a very simple form so that some of your workers can understand it?
No, not necessarily. We employed my son as he's done a graphic design education, so he has not really an education within the farming industry. But we employed him, and half of his job is actually going to be to analyze it all and keep track of it all. And so I see it more as a supportive stream to support the guys on the ground, if you like.
It's almost like having a professional alongside your accountant and your bank manager and your lawyer.
Yeah, yeah. And it sort of that needs to be optimized, and we need to keep track of it all and make sure it's all right, sort of thing. Because the thing is, when cows, when they drop production or whatever, like when you're not on the ball there, you're just making the right decisions, but about 3 days too late, if you like. So I mean, it has to be really immediate, like it has to be right there, and then you have to have the right information to make the right decisions.
How important is it to talk to your field reps?
You mean for fertilizer?
Yeah, well, you guys from Balance, for example.
Yeah, no, that is important. But I mean, to be honest, like I'm just starting off with Balance. I mean, the whole thing is kind of new to me. Like I don't know how that will develop, but I would assume just have a probably maybe a 6 monthly catch up with the field rep, talking about the fertilizer, making fertilizer plans for the year. So I would expect to put a cropping plan in, like that's the crops I want to grow and stuff like that. And then we make a plan for the year, so that should be reasonably simple. But the whole, how this feed is going to blend in and all that could actually be a bit more intensive, that relationship.
You've done very well with the Balanced Environmental Awards too.
Yeah.
That must be a big buzz for you.
Yeah, no, that was good fun, yeah. We really just, like we've got these, on this journey of intensification, we built these wintering sheds and we just really wanted to tell the story. And I just really feel that farmers get slagged a wee bit and more than they deserve, because genuinely they are actually just really passionate about the environment. So we just wanted to tell the good story, and no, it was good to be able to do that, yes. Yeah.
I'm going to make you go humble, but you're one of the leaders in the industry. Where would you like to see it go?
Oh, I would like us to produce another 5 or 10 billion litres of milk in the next 10 years to feed hungry people, and I would like us to not stuff the environment while we do it.
Does that mean a lot more cut and carry?
Could be, yeah. I think the answers to the questions still have to be developed, but I think by learning and by actually analysing data and keeping it current and sort of learning as you go, exploring new territory, that's how we're going to get there. How
far away are we from the optimum as far as production?
I don't know. I think there's a fair way to go, to be honest. We buy in feed and we store all the manure and we put it on support land and we use that to grow more grass, if you like. On that area, we can actually grow 22 tons of dry matter. We can harvest 22 tons of dry matter per year. On our dairy platforms, we harvest maybe 12.5 tons of dry matter per year. So that's I'm not saying that we should go cut and carry, but I mean the opportunity is there to grow 22 tons of dry matter. So if you would put that into milk, you would end up probably 1,800 solids per year easily.
Going back to the group of companies that are now there for your support, are they offering enough? Do you think they...
I think, as I say, it's early days for me yet because I'm just starting off. But I think that the mix is really is very current. It's like the combination of feed and information and fertilizer. I mean, all in the one mix. And I think going forward, I would really like to see a partnership between the people that supply the feed and supply the fertilizer to provide the knowledge as well, and we can all learn together and make it happen. I really think the potential is there, yes.
After the break, a timely warning about a new disease that's hitting our cattle. Welcome back to Rob's Country. I think it's very prudent that we look back at some of the not so nice parts of farming in New Zealand, including a disease that's sadly starting to take control in our cattle herds.
Yeah, so we've got a new disease called Theileria, and we've had a new strain of Theileria called Ikeda, which has appeared in Northland since August 2012, and it's been affecting a large number of North Island herds up to this point. And there has been one case in Rangiora, which was just affecting one animal that was brought down. So it is a disease that we could see coming down into the South Island, especially into tick-affected areas. So Theileria is a disease of cattle that's transmitted by ticks. and you need ticks to transmit the infection. And the infection affects the red blood cells, and they get damaged and pulled out of the circulation, and cows will suddenly go very anemic and very slow. So it's a bit like climbing Mount Everest at altitude.
Without oxygen.
Without oxygen, that's it. So cows just don't have the energy, so they might be very slow, lethargic, and they might come into the shed with pale udders. And if you look in the gums or in the vulva, you'll see that instead of being a nice pink colour, they've gone very pale, or they may go yellow and jaundiced in colour as well.
So the secret would be tick control, I guess.
So tick control is part of the ongoing process. Unfortunately, it only takes one infected tick to transmit the disease, and tick control, if it's not 100%, isn't going to prevent it. So what we've found in North Island herds is that tick control can slow the process down, but it will not prevent infection occurring if you've got infected cattle coming in and you've got a tick population on the farm in that situation.
Neil, the first thought is dairying because we're on a dairy farm,
Yep.
But what about beef cattle?
Yeah, so with beef cattle, what's been happening there is we've been getting 6 to 10 week old beef calves affected. So generally speaking, adults haven't been affected, but we have had 6 to 10 week old beef calves that have gone very pale, lifeless, collapsed, or just even found dead. So if you're a beef farmer and you find calves dead or collapsed, Theileria could be a possibility. So, get your vet in, get them to check out the affected animals.
And obviously, it is very, very serious. I mean, you don't get a slight case of that.
Yeah, so with Theileria, we see the whole gamut from very mild on some farms to very severe on other farms, and there's a whole lot of factors that come into that. If we've got naive, unexposed animals going into a high tick area, so animals, say in the south of the North Island moving up to Northland, we find in that situation those animals can, especially if it's around calving time and the start of lactation, they can be very severely affected, and we can get large numbers affected. Other farms can maybe just get 1 or 2 clinical cases. They might just see the odd cow affected, and other farms might actually have the infection but don't even see any clinical cases. So generally we see animals that are in good condition. They will have the disease to a milder extent, and so if they're well fed, good condition, not under too much stress, then their immune system will work much better.
Because it's interesting you said stress. That was going to be my next question.
Yep.
It seems linked to stress.
Yeah, so stress is an important sort of factor in the disease, and we've got this sort of the stress of calving and the stress of early lactation will lower the immune system in the cow, and infections at that time can be quite severe. And we've had the same thing in autumn calving herds, where autumn calving herds around calving, if they're affected, can have severe problems with it. You can have cows that go down with it, and if it's around calving, they might get treated with calcium for milk fever, but they're actually non-responsive to calcium. So if you've got any cows going down that aren't responding to calcium, have a look at the gums, get your vet to check them out, because again, that could be a case of Theileria infection. So treatment, there's unfortunately no vaccines available out there, and there's unlikely to be any vaccine for quite a while. The best treatment is blood transfusion in severely affected animals, and a lot of vet practices have got these down pat now and got blood transfusion kits. And basically we collect 5 litres of blood from a normal healthy cow, and we transfuse that straight into a sick cow with Theileria, and that can have very dramatic results. Those cows will pick up within a few hours, and we have a good success rate with those. There are rather specific Theileria treatments, but unfortunately they have very long milk withholds. The present one has got a milk withhold of 43 days, and they've got meat withhold of 180 days plus, which that one might be even going up to 18 months. So the residue issue with those drugs makes it that the specific anti-Theilerial drugs such as BBQ probably won't be used very much due to those residue issues that we have to control.
Your blood transfusions, do cows all have the one blood type?
And cows have lots and lots of different blood types, so that's a really good question to ask. So a one transfusion seems to go really well. There certainly is the potential for a transfusion reaction, especially if you're doing a second, third, fourth transfusion. So with the economics and the practicalities of blood group typing, generally we just do a transfusion without blood typing, and if it's a one-off transfusion, 5 litres of blood, very, very little problems involved.
I guess 2 major points, loss of income and production, and also hits fertility.
Yes, so unfortunately if your herd does get affected, you get lost milk production, your reproduction, getting cows back and calf could be affected, and obviously if there's any cow deaths, that hits the bottom line as well. So farmers in the North Island, some have had a few losses of a few $1,000s, and others have had losses that could add up to $50,000, $100,000. So the potential losses from a severe Theileria infection are severe.
And it's heading south.
And it's got the potential to sort of come down here. As I mentioned before, we've got tick populations in Golden Bay, Tartica, Blenheim areas, and if the infected cattle are brought down to those areas, then it's got the potential to get established. We've got 1 or 2 areas down the west coast and also southeast Southland where conditions are actually favourable, and ticks have got the potential to get established there. So if those ticks are transported down in livestock, there is the potential for those areas to develop a tick population. And then if we've got infected cattle brought into those areas, Theileria could potentially get established in the South Island as well.
It's sort of like you're going to have an anti-tick thing like you got an anti-TB thing.
Yes, so it's really important with any of these diseases, TB, Theileria, BVD, Johne's disease, to have good farm biosecurity. So any animals that you're buying in, you want to know what their history is, what their background is, do disease checks on them, talk to your veterinarian about what those risks are. And animals coming from different parts of the country pose potentially different risks. So the other message we'd really like to get across is if you're moving any cattle north, so any cattle going from the South Island up to the north, so going to infected areas that have got Theileria, such as North Waikato, Northland, those cattle are potentially at very severe risk of getting a severe Theileria infection, especially if they're trucked around about that 1st of June in a heavily pregnant condition. Then the stress and the challenge of infection up there could potentially be more severe than if they're just going to a sort of marginally endemic infected area.
After the break, we meet a charming young Irish woman. Welcome back to Rob's Country. Well, Galloping is certainly one of the sports of kings here in New Zealand, and there's a young Irish lady who is now making a name for herself.
Well, I started off riding in Dublin bareback at the back of my brother. We had this pony called Tonto, and I kind of just loved horses ever since.
And you've come to New Zealand after a patchy career in Ireland?
Yeah, well, I went to the jockey school when I was 15, and I was always slightly on the heavy side, but loved the job, you know. And then when I was 21, my weight had come down, and I decided to take out a licence. And probably wasn't the best timing with the recession in Ireland, as there wasn't many opportunities. But I stuck at it, and I think I only got 20 rides, and I had a lot of placings, and I enjoyed it. But I had kind of given up on the hope of being a jockey in Ireland.
And then you ended up in New Zealand. Why?
Yes. When my ex-boyfriend came here for the rebuild, and he told me that there was lots of opportunities here for girls, and I was quite comfortable at home. Wasn't sure, you know, but it was the best move I've ever made.
So you've ended up being apprenticed to a trainer?
Yes, Mr. Neil Colbeck out in Leafield. He took me on straight from Ireland, and it's been a great move. Neil's taught me a lot, so it's great.
And you've obviously joined the apprentice school here at Riccarton. Yeah,
it's great. Because I was done the jockey school at home was for a year, but this is a different outlook on it, you know, different country, different terms. So it's good to get the paperwork also, you know, on your CV, you know. So it's very helpful.
It's a pretty extensive course.
Yeah, it's gone. I'm here 2.5 years now, and I'm still going and still learning, you know. They get different people in to talk to us, and we always use the horse all the time, because you can never practice enough, you know.
Well, speaking of that, how much riding do you get done in a week?
Well, I'd ride up to 8 to 40 and 50 in the morning, and then maybe go on to race day. We'd ride, well, it's great when you have 8 rides on race day, but weekly it could be up to 70 or 80.
You've just been told some exciting news.
Yes, I'm going to Australia for 2 weeks on a scholarship, and hopefully get some race day experience over there too, and learn some new contacts. So I can't wait for that.
So you're going to stay in New Zealand or stay in Australasia, as it's known?
Yeah, definitely, because I love the racing, but the lifestyle here is very laid back, and I love it here. The killer is that it's far from home, but I think that here's home now.
And the whole thing, I mean, you've just slipped into it, and Canterbury's home now? Yeah,
definitely. There's lots of nice people around here that have looked after me and made me feel at home, you know, and it's just a good environment to be in, and I really enjoy it.
Got a good group of people in the academy?
Yeah, definitely. They're very helpful for any advice, you know. That's why they always look after you. You know, if you have any problems, they're very approachable and they're very helpful, so it's good to have that behind you.
You've got some good rides looming. Do you think, what's your best ride so far?
Well, Scapolo would be the best horse by class that I've ridden, but my favourite would be Wedgie, because I had a lot of success off him, but I also lost the ride on him early this year because I clipped heels and nearly fell down. So I got the drag off him, and it taught me a lesson. So when I got back on him, I kind of hounded the trainer to get me back on, and eventually he put me back on, and we won 3 in a row, like straight after that. So it was just a great thrill for it to work out, you know.
And as far as the future is concerned, you're a jockey through and through, and that's your career? Yeah,
definitely. I think my height has a lot to do with it. I love the horses and the lifestyle it's given me, you know. I went to America there for 3 months riding horses. You can go anywhere in the world, and it's just given me a great life. But I'd love to do something outside horses, like maybe interior designing one day, like just as another interest, you know, because you can't do it all with horses. But no, it's definitely a great lifestyle.
After the break, we meet this year's South Island Farmer of the Year. Welcome back to Rob's Country. November is the time of year when we find out who is going to be the top farmer for the South Island. This year, it's a pork producer.
Well, we do run a large pig operation, producing almost 8,000 tonne a year of pig meat going off the property. All of those sows that we run are outdoors, and all the progeny are grown on deep litter systems.
And you started not early in life with 3 sows.
That's correct. Just 3 pigs in an old converted woodshed is how we got going, and that was at the age of about 39 when I first went pig farming.
Why is it so important to have outdoor pigs and having them grazing?
Really because the consumer perceives that to be a more ethical way of raising pigs, and we realised that was going to be of growing interest to the consumer very early on in our piece. I think we also feel more comfortable growing pigs in an outdoor situation and in that kind of environment.
A lot of pigs leave your place. How many a week?
We typically focus on about 2,000 to 2,200, something in that order.
So 3,500 sows?
We're a little bit more now. We're up to about 5,000 sows.
I mean, that's huge figures, isn't it? How many acres are you running them on?
We've got 580 hectares that we run the pigs on, and then we have another 100 or 20 hectares of grazing, cut and carry property.
So that's where they're sitting on pads and you bring the food to them?
No, you mean the cut and carry? Cut and carry is simply where we take a lot of the compost that we produce, spread it on the ground, and then cut the crop off it and carry it away off-site. That's in order to try and reduce our impact on the environment.
Gotcha. Now, you're also grazing under trees?
Yes, we do. That was a bit of an experiment. We weren't sure how that would work, but it seems to have worked very well without damaging the trees. And it's meant that it's a good environment for the pigs to live in. It's sheltered from the sun and the wind and most of the elements, and the pigs really thrive under it, so it's been a great success.
Steve, obviously animal health and animal comfort, vital in your operation.
Terribly. So we're pretty precious about maintaining our biosecurity. It's pretty difficult to get on site unless you have been free of contact with other pigs of any sort or pig products, and that's essential in our industry. The costs of a disease incursion are simply enormous, so we do everything in our power to try and avoid that from happening.
South Island Farmer of the Year, hugely prestigious. A feather in the cap for the pork industry that you've done it, but you're going to be humble when I say that, I know.
Yeah, it is good for the pork industry. We typically run a very low profile presence in the media, and often the media exposure we get has not been good over the years. So it is terrific to be able to be recognised as somebody who is innovative and helping to grow pigs the way that the consumer expects them to be grown.
Is this going to be the coming thing? Are people going to follow your example?
I think there could well be young farmers, young men wanting to enter farming, and I'd like to think that they took some inspiration from this story and saw that there was opportunity to enter this field. But I think agriculture in general has a huge amount to offer young men and women who want to develop a career, and I hope really that whatever pursuit young men and women want to pursue in agriculture, that they do so with vigour and with real interest and enthusiasm.
I'm Rob Cope-Williams, and you've either been watching or you've just missed Rob's Country, but I will be back with a more traditional version at the same time next week. Until then, bye now.